Hello there. This lesson is 6.1 Slope-Intercept Form, and the essential question is how can you represent a linear function in a way that reveals its slope and y-intercept. And we talked about what slope and y-intercept look like and what they represent, either on a graph or in a word problem. We did all of that in Module 5. So there is a quiz coming up for Module 5. Be sure you know how to find x and y intercepts, and also how to find slope, and then to interpret all of that information. So let's take a look at the Explorer here. So we have Andrew wants to buy a smartphone that costs $500. His parents will pay for the phone. Andrew will pay them $50 each month until the entire amount is repaid. The loan repayment represents a linear situation in which the amount y that Andrew owes his parents is dependent on the number x of payments he has made. So the y depends on the x, or the amount he owes depends on how many payments he's made so far. So let's take a look at, let's break down this problem and get the information that will help us. When x is 0, that means when 0 payments have been made, y is going to equal 500. Okay, that's the amount that Andrew owes his parents. The y-intercept of the graph of the equation that represents his situation is the point 0, 500. The rate of change in the amount Andrew owes is $50 per month, so the slope is 50. Or you can think of it as 50 over 1. C, use the y-intercept to plot a point on the graph of the equation. Since the y-intercept is 500, we're going to plot the point 0, 500. So go down to the graph, and we're going to plot 0, 500. Because it's the y-intercept, it should lie on the y-axis. Let's use the definition of slope to get a second point. The slope is defined in how much the y changes divided by how much the x changes. So this means the y changes by $50 and the x changes by 1. That means $50 for every 1 month, which is the same as 50. So we're going to start at the point that we plotted already, the y-intercept at 0, 500. We're going to count 50 units down, because that's our y, our change in y, and then 1 unit to the right. You can also think of this as the rise and run. And as I'm explaining that, I just realized I made a mistake. Think about what the rate of change actually means. Are we adding to the $500, or are we taking away from the $500? And so the mistake that I made was this is actually going to be negative 50. So I'm changing the answer that I put in part B. So we're subtracting $50 from the amount that Andrew owes. And that means our slope is going to be negative 50 over 1, which is negative 50. And then let's go ahead and use our slope to find our second point. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 50, which goes to 450, and then over 1 to the right. And this gives me $450 after 1 month. Then it's going to go down 50 and over 1 again, $400 in 2 months, and so on. And this is going to keep going like this, all the way until it's completely paid off. So you can think about how long, I didn't draw my line very accurately, but you can think about how long that would take to pay off completely. On this next page, you'll see the slope formula here, which is going to be important for us in this lesson. This was introduced in lesson 5.3. That'll be important to know for your quiz coming up. And that's that. M equals the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's our slope, and our y-intercept is b. So this is important that you know that m represents slope and b represents the y-intercept. Now we're going to have this thing called slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So if you look in this box here, this actually comes from the slope formula. So this is our second form of a linear equation. Our first one, if you recall, this is all the way back to lesson 5.1, is ax plus by equals c. And this is standard form. And we're going to look at some more forms of a linear equation as we go throughout this unit. So we have standard form, and this lesson is focused on the slope-intercept form. So let's take a look at how we would use this. Your turn on page 241, number 3. The slope is -1 and 3, 2 is on the line. So we're going to write the equation of this line in slope-intercept form, which means I want it to look like this. Y equals mx plus b. If I know what my slope is and what my y-intercept is, I can write my equation. So first thing we want to ask here is, do I know what my slope or y-intercept is? And I do. From this problem, I know that my slope is -1. So I'm going to write m equals -1. And I have half of my problem is already done just because it's already given that to me. The next thing is, can I find my y-intercept? The y-intercept is when x is 0. And since I don't know what that is, the problem doesn't give it to me, I'm going to use this point that's given to us, this 3, 2. 3 is my x value, and 2 is my y value. Now this point has a bunch of x and y coordinate pairs, ordered pairs, but this is one of them. So I'm going to take my y equals mx plus b, and we're going to substitute in the y value there, the slope here, and the x coordinate there. I just don't know what the b is, and we're trying to figure that out. So y is 2. I got it from the top here. Remember this point. Y is 2 equals m is -1, x is 3, and again, I don't know what b is. So we need to solve this for b. 2 equals -3 plus b, and b ends up being 5. So there we go. I got my slope. I got my y-intercept. So the equation is going to look like y equals mx plus b. Whoops. Plus b. So I know that my m is -1 and my b is 5. So y equals -1x plus 5 is my equation of this line in slope-intercept form. So you can go ahead and try number 4, and before you do, you are given 2 points. So I suggest finding the slope first using our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And once you've done that, you're going to follow the same process that we did on number 3. So if you'd like to, go ahead and pause it and give this a try before you see the solution. Okay, I'm going to label my points x1, y1, and x2, y2. So I'm going to have 18 minus 4 to get my slope, that's the change in y, over the change in x, 3 minus 1. And I'm going to get 14 over 2, which is 7. So there's my slope. Once I know my slope, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b to find out what b is, my y-intercept. And I'm going to use any point that I want here. I have 2 points. I use one of them. So let's use the smaller one numbers, 1, 4. So 1 is my x coordinate and 4 is my y coordinate. So if y equals mx plus b, then 4 equals 7 times 1 plus b. If I used the other point 3, 18 instead, I'm going to get the same solution. So it doesn't really matter. Once you work this out, you're going to get b equals -3. And then from there, we have our y-intercept, we have our slope. So y equals 7x minus 3. Or you could write y equals 7x plus -3. It's the same thing. And there it is. The next thing you'll be expected to do is to graph these in slope-intercept form. The Explore activity kind of helps you think about this in this way, a little bit differently than what we're used to. So your turn number 5 and number 6. I'm going to go ahead and do number 6, have you try number 5. So pause it once number 6 is over. Let's solve this for y so that we can put it into slope-intercept form. Remember, y equals mx plus b. And then we're going to graph it. So Number 6, the first thing we want to do is subtract 2x on both sides. And I get, let's do it up here, 3y equals negative 2x plus 6. And then I'm going to divide by 3 and divide this whole thing by 3. So y is negative 2/3 x plus 2. Okay, so from this, what is m? Our slope. Our slope is negative 2/3. It's whatever's next to the x there. And our y-intercept is positive 2. So I'm going to start at my y-intercept. Can we graph our y-intercept too? Well, on the y-axis, it's just right there. And then think about what the slope of negative 2 over 3 means. Remember, that's rise over run, or the change in y divided by the change in x. So if the y is changing by negative 2, that means it is going down 2. And then the 3 on the bottom is our run. That means we're going left or right. And since it's positive, we're going to the right. So that means I'm going to go from my y-intercept right here, I'm going to go down 2 and then right 3, and I end up there. And that makes my line. That's all there is to it. Number 5, to solve for y, I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. And y is negative 2x plus 4. So from this, my slope is negative 2. And because I want to think about change in y over change in x, or my rise over run, I want to think of my slope always as a fraction. Okay, negative 2 over 1, since negative 2 as a fraction is that, and my y-intercept is 4. So let's start at 4, our y-intercept, and then negative 2 means down 2, because that's the rise, and then the 1 on the bottom, positive 1, is to the right 1. So I'm going to go down 2 and right 1 from my y-intercept, and I get this. The cool thing about this is if I go down 2 over 1, I can continue to do the same thing. I go down 2 over 1 again, down 2 over 1 again, down 2 over 1 again. And I get these points that are all collinear. That means they're all on the same line. Okay, and it works that way because our slope is constant. It's always the same slope throughout the whole line. And now we have one more problem that we're going to try here, a problem. On page 244, the your turn, we're going to identify the slope and y-intercept of the graph that represents the linear situation and interpret what they mean. Then we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form, and we're going to use that to solve the problem. So the local club charges an initial membership fee as well as a monthly cost. The cost C in dollars is a linear function in the number of months of the membership. Find the cost of the membership after 4 months. So first of all, understand that cost is our Y, and actually they use C, sorry. So our cost, C, is our dependent variable because it depends on the number of months. And I can use M or I can use X or whatever variable I want to use. So C depends on M. I'll know the cost once I know what the number of months is. So the cost changes, right, from 100 to 277. It changes by adding 177. But how many months passes by for those $177? Well, it goes up 3 months. So $177 for 3 months of membership means, if I actually divide that, it means $59 for every 1 month. And this actually represents our slope. Okay, because that was the change in cost divided by the change in months, or the change in y divided by the change in x. So I have my slope. My slope is 59. Now the y-intercept, what's nice here is that the y-intercept is actually in our table. It's right here. When the independent variable is 0, our dependent variable is 100. So that means that our y-intercept is 100. Okay, so can we interpret these? The slope means $59 per month. And the Y-intercept means $100 for initial membership. Whoops. Membership. I'm going to abbreviate that. So I've interpreted both the slope and the y-intercept. Now let's go ahead and write the equation. The equation is y equals mx plus b. Notice I put the blanks there because that's all we have to plug in to figure out this linear equation. So our slope is 59. Our y-intercept is 100. And we are done. We have to also find the cost of the membership after 4 months. So 4 months means that y is going to equal 59 times 4 plus 100, and whatever that's equal to, I'll trust you to do that on your own, is going to be our answer or our cost after those 4 months. Okay, and that's it for this lesson. Have a wonderful day.